Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic bonus Thanksgiving movie review podcast. I'm your co-host Bob Zarrow. With me is professional film critic Sean Patrick, and Josh Adams is with us again. I don't think he's missed a bonus episode yet, if I'm not mistaken.
See, there is a streak that I'm happy to continue.
Excellent. Well, then we'll have to get you I Spit on Your Grave.
No problem. I'm ready for that challenge.
You're going to watch it like 14 times.
I don't know about that.
You got to watch every commentary track. Especially the Joe Bob Briggs
I think Bob, you're the only one who has said that.
Well, that's what you said the guy challenged you to do, didn't he?
No, just to watch the movie again.
Oh, I thought he challenged you to watch the commentaries from the director and Joe Bob Briggs.
They said they would recommend that, but they wanted me to watch the movie again.
Oh. Well, I have seen the commentary tracks. So, anyway, this, you know where we're from and where our social media stuff's at because you're on Patreon. So we're going to just kind of jump right into the show. We've used to do this in the past. The Thanksgiving episode, we bring another podcast on to talk about what they like. We once had Chris Jericho, the professional wrestler, do it. But this week, we're just going to be the three of us, and we're going to do new movies that we are thankful for. So, Sean, do you want to get things started?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of relatively new, because I want to talk about Midsommar again. I love talking about Midsommar. And this was actually the inspiration to want to do this again, to talk about movies we're thankful for, because Midsommar is a movie that, for me, just kind of has changed the way I see movies. That's how amazing Midsommar is. This is Ari Aster's most recent film from last year, which I named the best movie of 2019. And it's a movie that's about a real, extraordinary examination of grief, but at the same time, it's also this remarkable achievement of a director who is just so intricate and so thoughtful about every aspect of the filmmaking process. Everything matters. Little tiny details that most directors don't think about or might forget to about, or not think are important. Ari Aster cares that deeply about it to make it be in the movie, to make it matter, to make it stand out. And really, what the perception of it for me just changes every time I watch it. Like the first time, it was just pure, unadulterated shock and this joy at being shocked. And then the second time I watched it, it was experiencing the film from the filmmaking perspective and seeing all these very unique and unbelievably brilliant details throughout. And then each subsequent time that I've seen it, something new pops up where, like, somebody posted on Twitter about 4 or 5 months ago that they'd seen something in the movie that they didn't realize was there before. And I watched it again and like, oh yeah, you're right, there it is. And it's this, and again, it all plays into what he's talking about, which again is an examination of grief. This woman goes through this horrific trauma of losing her family, and that just affects everything that happens to her afterwards. Though this specter of death hangs over her no matter where she goes, and she visits this culture that has a very different perspective on death. And the way that it examines that, and examines those characters and how those characters exist, is just fascinating, and it just reveals itself in new, different ways each and every time I watch it. Most recently, Bob, I watched it while listening to some of the music that we talked about in the episode, because there's a particular band whose music kind of dovetails with this, and just it's shocking the way that works that much. Which band was that, by the way? I can't remember. Bob?
Coven.
Coven. Thank you. Yeah, I was listening to Coven and enjoying the movie, and it just works. This movie is just, it's like I said, it's changed the way I see movies. I now hold movies to an even higher standard.
It ruined the way I see movies in a lot of ways.
In some ways, because I want this experience again.
Right. And it really, like, it made me not.
That's what I mean. This is a
it's definitely made going back to the classics more fun, because then you can see the originality in the filmmaking and the storytelling that lacks in a lot of the standard blockbuster movies today. Even the ones that do it okay, there's just something different about Midsommar or whatever, however they pronounced it.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. It really was the experience. Then, listening to that record on the way home, and then talking about it, and then doing the podcast about it, then doing the bonus podcast about it, then seeing it again and again. It's a movie that will stick with me for probably forever. And every time you watch, you get something new out of it. I'm glad Josh liked it. That was the one holdout I had. But I just love this movie.
You know what? You guys are really going to be pleased about this then, because I shit you not, Midsummer is one of my choices that I'm thankful for. And there's a very specific reason for that. I suppose it would seem convenient to say that to the untrained ear, but having not been on the show for some time on a consistent basis, it was really nice when I told you guys that I saw it, that to be able to connect again on something so clearly and see it from your point of view after the fact, and say, oh my gosh, you were right about this, and what about this, and what about this, and every time that you say something about it, my brain lights up with, yes, I agree, I completely agree, that was amazing. And as for blasé as I was about Hereditary, because of the way that it turned out, I think it's very interesting that I appreciate Midsommar. I think it's a little better filmmaking. It's somebody that's matured a little bit as a director already, and performances in that movie are so starkly terrifying / strange all at the same time. It's something that has stuck in my head since then. And so, also I'm in a Facebook group that is a movie exchange group, or we sell things to each other. And the hottest item in that group right now is the Midsommar director's cut. Like, apparently it's very scarce, and anytime it comes up, people want to go grab it because they love the movie so much. And I've had some extended conversation about it in those groups. So being able to connect again to the movie world over the past year, roughly, especially in this particular year, and understand what you guys are talking about again, finally, it's been really special to do. So I'm definitely thankful for that as well.
I think with the
go ahead.
With the director's cut, I love it, of course, because I love this movie so much. But I think what I love about the director's cut is that you can see why he made the choices to cut out what he cut. Not that they're bad scenes; they're very good scenes. There's a couple of scenes that are relatively redundant of the point that he's already made. That said, these are also scenes that are incredibly well shot and incredibly would fit perfectly in the movie if he hadn't already made the particular point just prior to it. And that's such an interesting way to approach a director's cut, is to add back in scenes that are really great scenes, but make it very obvious this is why I cut this, because this point had already existed in the movie.
Yeah. And Ari Aster participated in I think it's the History of Horror on AMC. And he talked about Hereditary, and knowing he was going to lose half the audience when he went the way he did, but he was like, fuck it, this is where I want to go. So he out and out knew what he was doing, and that makes me love that movie that much more. Then Midsommar is just, I don't know, it's in another world all by itself, which makes me, I'm going to pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a movie I appreciate, only because that was the first movie that allowed me to escape that bias that Midsommar had put on every other movie I'd seen. It's not the second best movie, in recent years by any means, but it was the movie that allowed me to get lost in it. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, other movies can exist besides Midsommar. so I do appreciate that out of, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it was fun, and it was just, Brad Pitt was phenomenal. Leo was really good. I thought it was a really great Tarantino movie, and Margot Robbie, her the way, what she did in it was really important. I just, the whole thing was so much fun, and one of the movies I'm thankful for.
Yeah, the interesting. I love that movie as well, and it's interesting. You were on quite a journey there for a while after Midsummer because you were almost depressed.
Yeah,
about movies for a little while. After, why can't everything be like this?
Or even attempted.
Yeah, it was great to get to this movie and have that live a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is just it's so good. It's so sprawling and yet well put together, and has that classic Tarantino feel of a wide ranging story being told with the intricate pieces, and yet it feels so loose and free and fun and exciting. And he just does that so very, very well. And then you have that bit of a kinky thrill of seeing the Manson family get what they deserve. Like, I know it's not. It's obviously just there's a way to take liberties with history and do it well. I don't think, like we were talking about Ammonite before, about how it takes a little liberty with history, and I don't necessarily think it does it in a skillful manner. This takes liberty with history and does it with a great deal of skill.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I don't want to see the Charles Manson murders in a big movie like this. That's just gratuitous and unnecessary, and we already know. I don't need to see it, so I don't know. That's just me.
Josh, what do you think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I would love to tell you. Believe it or not, I have still not seen it. Finding the time. Yeah, you know what? Carving out 3 hours of time for us here without wanting to finish any other like dramatic television show that we're watching, like The Undoing or whatever. That's difficult. And we are both very large Tarantino fans, but not on the level that we should be. I feel very guilty for not having seen this yet.
You'll love it when you see it. Who wants to go next?
Josh.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now, this is... I think I misinterpreted the new movies thing that I'm thankful for. I think I'm going to put it all into one group as stuff that I have seen this year for my number one. But this particular one is a recent movie, and I'll say it's On the Rocks. The reason why I care about this really as much as I do, 2020 has been pretty shitty for a lot of different people. 2020 has been definitely the most excruciating one of my life, and I'd like to see it go the fuck away. And this movie really seemed to echo a lot of the experience of this year for me, and I just really appreciated somebody else having the same voice as me for a while. It's so simple and not of any significance per se, but you guys have heard me say this on the show before too. I love little moments in time movies like this, where it's just a period of somebody's life and they've felt the same way from beginning to end, really, and a short journey. And this really embodies that very well. And I appreciate Sofia Coppola's subtlety as a director so much. And Rashida Jones continues to prove herself to me as somebody that could anchor a drama or a comedy of a certain type. So I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, we went on a long conversation about her and about why she doesn't get more attention in the way we would imagine that she should. And that was a big part of that episode. I love On the Rocks because it's like Sofia Coppola's take on a mainstream movie in some ways. Like in another movie, this would be a caper. The way that they try to chase down her husband to find out if he's cheating, that would turn into this this wacky caper. And this is kind of her take on what that might be like, her making a wacky caper movie. And I love it so much more for that. It's just so smart, and it's just so much better than that movie, than those actual wacky caper movies. And just the interplay between her and Bill Murray is so smart and so just fun, and is the way you hope people will talk to each other. And I just love this movie.
No, I agree completely. You guys have knocked it out of the park, and I would love to see really both of them nominated and winning Oscars. I think it's be well deserved because they were both phenomenal. I wouldn't care if all of them won for that matter. I don't know. We'll see what else comes out this year, but this is one of the best movies of the year and one of the best directorial jobs, some of the best acting all around. Just a great, fantastic movie. Sean?
All right. Yes. The next one is my actual favorite movie of 2020. H is for Happiness, which is an Australian family film that I enthused about on the show, and has not left me at all. I just the pure joy of creation in this movie, the ways in which this director and these actors appear to just be loving every second of what they do makes this movie just such a complete joy. And when you're talking about a year like 2020 has been, which has been a terrible year in so many different ways, when you get this kind of bolt of joy, you have to embrace it. You have to hold on to it as much as you can. And I've watched this movie like 3 or 4 times now because I want to go back to the feeling of this. I want to go back to this joy of watching these people just have so much happiness and light and fun. And even as they're talking about a couple of pretty serious things here and there, they do it with such a deft hand. It's so very smart and light and lovely. It's so imaginative, and it follows its fancy to so many different ways that could be saccharine or could be could be just wrong in so many ways, and it gets it right. The lovely young actress who's at the center of it is so quirky, and played by anybody else, I can imagine those quirks getting really, really tiresome, but they never do with her. And really, the entire cast reflects that similar feeling. Each of these characters could be played in a much broader fashion and be complete. I look at the numbers in my written review on H is for Happiness, and the number barely moves. Nobody's reading it, and really nobody talks about this movie. And I know it's an Australian family film. There's a lot of points against it in terms of trying to get people to watch it based on that, but it's truly it's so brilliant and it's so smart and so funny and so happy. It's really, in a year with that lacked a great joy, H is for Happiness is just this joyous, loving, brilliant thing, and I wish more people would see it.
Yeah, it caught me off guard, and I wish I remember how I described it, because it should be. I think it was like a movie like what Matilda was or whatever from the late 90s or early 2000s, whenever that came out. It should be that dumb, but there's more art behind it that I compared it to something else, like maybe if like Juno mixed with Matilda or something like that. It's got that innocence of a family movie, but it's so much smarter and so much better than it should be or has any right to be. It really is one of the best movies of the year. I agree completely, and it totally caught me off guard. Similar to a way, something like Amelie caught me off guard, but it's its own thing. It's not. It's hard to compare to something else because it's what you would compare it to is kind of dumb. But this is really good. I think Wonder.
Yeah, it's so brilliant and so just an incredible work of art. I mean, and I know we don't see that often from a movie that is called a family movie. That tends to get ghettoized and pushed off to the side for children to watch. And this is certainly a movie I would show to children, absolutely, because it is that wonderful. But it is so much more than that. This is what you can do when you make a family movie with some actual ambition to it. And that's so much lacking in that genre.
I just think you might like it, Josh. And I'm not saying like in a big sick type way or whatever. Which you liked, but I don't think we're overblowing it. I really do think it's that good if people watch it, because there's no way you to watch the trailer and be like, this is going to be, how could it possibly be what they're saying? So the trailer is going to let you down a little bit. I don't know. I really think it'll work if you ever got a chance. I know you got a lot going on, but I think you'd enjoy it if you ever did get around to it.
You know what? While you were talking about it, guys, I looked it up and I saw that Miriam Margolyes was the lead in this one. Am I right about that?
I'm not sure off the top of my head what the young lady's name is.
Okay. No, I've always Miriam Margolyes is the older lady, and I've always liked her as a character actor, and so that attracted me to it right away. But then reading the story and hearing your description, you're right. It kind of does sound right up my alley. I've always liked hopelessly optimistic, quirky characters. The first one that comes to my mind is Amy Adams in Junebug, and she was nominated for that performance. Quirky and happy and positive and trying to overlook all of the nastiness around her. That kind of thing really is in my wheelhouse, as we say.
And I'm all about the nastiness. So my number 2 will be The Hunt, which is right up there. I don't know if it's my favorite anymore. On the Rocks might be my favorite, but it's right up there this year. Whenever I'm like, if I'm depressed, I'm going to go listen to Alice in Chains and that kind of shit. If I'm just going to wallow in whatever I'm feeling. So if 2020 sucks, I'm going to jump into what made it suck. And aside from the pandemic, all this division. And I think The Hunt knocks it out of the park more than any other movie has. And I know, they don't spell it out for you. So you got to kind of come to it on your own, and people will miss it. They'll think it's something else. But I like how it's I like how it just really goes after the division in this country, even really in the world. And I just think it's so smart, and I like the nastiness of it. And then Betty Gilpin, I love her in Glow, and to see her get a starring role like this, and I wish more people would have seen it, because it literally, it should have came out last fall. The Republicans somehow got it to not. It was literally the last movie I saw in the theater before the pandemic. So there's that part of it too. But she is so fantastic in this, and her fight scene with, oh my God, Hilary Swank. How do you forget her? I thought that fight scene was phenomenal. It was fun. It was, I don't know. I just love how it's like real life social media, and that just was intriguing to me. And I'll go dark any day of the week. That's.
Yeah, the Hunt is one I still struggle with a little bit. Not that I don't think it's good. I do think it's good. I think I think really my favorite takeaway is that it's basically Twitter as a movie.
Right. Right.
If you gave people on Twitter guns and put them against each other, this is what would happen. It is a perfect amalgamation of what social media would be, if you had to take it into the real world. And so that aspect I respect. I guess the thing I struggle with The Hunt is that I worry that there are people who can either side can adopt this movie and adopt it as their own and talk about it as propaganda of their side. And that's always something I struggle with. Like, I think the same problem about, not necessarily, it's a better movie than Team America, but Team America suffers from the same thing, where people can, on both sides, can grab that and say, this is mine, and it represents what I stand for, and it means this. And I generally speaking, when you can assign a meaning to a movie, it becomes less than for me.
And I like the fact that to me, that's always something like a song. If you put your own meaning to the song, I think that's better. And movies are a little different than music, but I actually, that's something I actually like about movies like Joker, Team America, other movies we've talked about with the same thing, where it goes down the middle, because both sides are at fault. There's, even if one side's more right than the other, there's still, both sides are doing something wrong. And that's what I enjoy movies that kind of point that out. But you're right, people fuck that up. So I don't disagree with you there. Have you seen The Hunt yet, Josh?
Nope, heard all about it though, and I remember the fight against getting it released. And yeah, you certainly don't want me commenting on it. All I'm going to do is talk for hours about things, and I agree with you, Bob, in that I do enjoy anything that specifically takes a stand. And film language wise, I think it's not as much of a challenge to just take one particular stand and go with it and not look at all angles. I agree with Sean on that point, but I also take great revelry in the nastiness when I need to, because it kind of like has the voice that I don't get to have on it, and that makes me happy.
What is your next choice, Josh?
As I said, I don't have a whole lot of new things to talk about, newer movies, but there's one from 11 years ago that I could mention. Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You guys will definitely remember its existence, and Sean, I'm sure that you saw it, but it's a little indie movie directed by a huge director in Sam Mendes, and it's called Away We Go. Speaking of people in similar groups together, such as Rashida Jones, Maya Rudolph, John Krasinski, this one stars the latter two, and directed by the American Beauty director. I mean, it's the strangest combo of talents to really make me excited. Now, I loved this the first time that I saw it, but even though I was watching it with somebody, the experience was solo. I was enjoying it so much on my end, and then when the other party's like, no, I don't like that, I felt let down, and then I kind of took a break from it for 11 years and just watched it again a few weeks ago. And to hear from my wife that it's one of her now top 10 favorite films of all time is very validating. And it makes me very thankful that I could share something with somebody and literally recommend it to them as something that they enjoyed that much. Now, is it in my top 10? No. Is it in my top 100? No, but it's probably in the 1 to 150 category. It just has a lot to say, I think, about finding your particular clan, rejecting things that you grew up with, rejecting, like, just because they're your parents doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with everything they say or even speak with them. It's just something I identify with. I know that it's probably not for everyone because they can't identify with it, but I love those characters so much. And Maya Rudolph, like Rashida Jones, I think is so much more capable of what she's had credit for thus far.
She was great in the new Adam Sandler movie.
She makes a great vice president-elect.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
No, I love this movie. I love this movie when it came out in 2009, and it's really clever. And I mean, this cast is absolutely unreal. With Jeff Daniels, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Allison Janney, and Melanie Linsky, who's gets a really couple of great moments late in this movie that are really just fantastic. And
oh my God,
it stuck with me all these years.
So.
Yeah.
Sean, what do you got next?
I'm going to go weird on this one and even go further back than Josh did, but it's recent for us, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I like to have my mind blown by something that never would have expected to blow my mind, and really I had such an amazing experience watching this movie. And I know we talked about it on the show. Obviously, that's why I'm talking about it now. But I wanted to revisit that feeling because I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for having had that experience of that movie. And it's such a silly movie to have that experience about. But it was just, again, like enjoying, H's for Happiness and just feeling pure, unadulterated joy for a little while. That's what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 was. It was just this unending amount of fun. And you can find that so rarely these days. And you got to embrace it when you can. And I'm really just still kind of blown away at how skillful that movie is in being a big blockbuster, a kids movie, but also a movie that is just skillfully made for what it is. And it recognizes, its own limitations for what it is, but it's an ambitiously fun movie. It's got a great vibe. It's got a great pace. And It's not a perfect movie by any stretch. Obviously, it looks kind of silly overall, but really the experience of that movie I'm so thankful for, because I had absolutely no expectation to even enjoy it, let alone to find it to be one of my favorite experiences of this year. So I kind of went from I don't want to do this, and this is going to be, I'm going to hate this, all the way around to this is awesome. Why don't we talk about this more?
Yeah.
This is not the movie I expected to have that experience with, especially in 1990.
The sad thing is, I think it could come out today and still work. Movies that recognize their own limitations tend to be better. There's more art involved with it. They are more creative with what they come up with, and they end up making the story better. When you can just blow shit up, you get a Michael Bay movie, and it's too hectic and too much going on. And this one, they rely more on the characters. They rely more on the story, and because of that, it's more of a fun movie-going experience than obviously the remakes have been. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. Those remakes, they're more like marketing materials, really. They're really like just we've got a product here to sell to people, and this is how we're going to sell it. And that's really how that functions, is that it's a functionary. And it feels soulless because of that, because it feels like we're just being marketed, nostalgia, or here's an IP, here's this familiar intellectual property that we're all aware of, and we've kind of structured a story to go with it. That doesn't happen here. As much as they've got a great marketing hook for this, there's a strange word to use here, but there's a purity to the intention of what they're doing with this movie that doesn't exist with each and every subsequent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, and I appreciate that. I feel a connection to that I can't feel to these remakes.
That makes me so happy to hear that you identify with something nerdy like this, and it makes you happy. But it's ironic that you said the marketing surrounding the latest films, saying like, hey, we have a toy, we want you to buy it, therefore here are these films to drag you into a store. The funny part about that is the new Turtles toys, nobody gives a shit about those, okay? It's all the delightful sculpts of the 1990 films that are popular. Like literally, those in the commercial-based figures from the 80s and 90s, those are the most popular toys on the market right now in terms of retail releases. I can say this from experience. I have no desire to have them myself, but I'm nerdy in another way. But they're so popular, and that's from something that was released 30 years ago, and it brings people our age not just nostalgic feelings, but fun feelings, just like you're talking about.
All right, which one do I choose? I think I've chosen the other one before in other Thanksgiving episodes, so I'm going to pick Mandy. That was one of the most fun theatrical experiences I've ever had. And then to go back and rewatch it this year with my wife, and now that weed's legal, I haven't gotten into it yet, but maybe I will, and maybe I'll watch it again because it could be even more fun.
Yes.
Mandy is so much. It's just a blast. And then you throw in that interview afterwards. You got to go to YouTube and look up Kevin Smith and Cosmos. What the hell you pronounce his last name? Not ready for.
Cosmos.
Yeah, and then Nicolas Cage and the other actor. I don't remember his name, but that when Nicolas Cage walks out dressed essentially like Elvis in a gold suit. It was just fucked up and fun, and so Nicolas Cage, and he's never been better. And this was just a blast, and it's a black metal opera, and starts off with King Crimson, and they play the boring part of the song, and just when the song about goes crazy, Mandy starts and goes crazy. It's just so fantastic how it was put together, and I don't know. I have the cheddar goblin cheese box cereal in my basement, or not cereal, but boxed macaroni and cheese in my basement. I just adore this movie. I have coasters. I'm looking at one right now of the main character, and it's just so much fun and so fucked up, but on top of that, just amazing filmmaking, and you just don't see enough of that anymore. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I see a lot of that. It's hidden between marketing materials, which is essentially every other movie that comes out. And even when they're done good, like the Marvel movies, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but it's nice to see, something like this, pop up in between and just really blow me away. So I'm going with Mandy.
Great choice. And Mandy, it grows in my mind as opposed to other movies that I forget and cast off. This movie grows. It gets better each time I think about it. And just the boldness of the filmmaking, the artistry on display. And as much as it's Crazy Cage, you're also actually really buying in on a lot of his emotions, a lot of the big, broad plays that he's doing. As much as it's Crazy Cage, it's also like that moment in the bathroom is as ridiculous as it looks. You're buying in because that emotion is raw. It is real. He is feeling that shit. And that still sticks with me. Yes, it's Nicolas Cage and Tidy Whitey's freaking out, but at the same time, he's also just a man who's just had everything taken from him in the most horrific fashion. And it is ungodly fascinating, and you're just in awe of the power that is coming off of that screen the rest of the way. And again, we're talking about a movie that has a chainsaw fight in it. You got a movie with Nicolas Cage using so much drugs to keep himself going and keep himself in this fight. That again, it's absolutely insane. But you're in it. You bought in because he's also very, very compelling.
And I made the joke about weed being legal. You really don't even need that. It gets you there mentally on its own, which, I mean, Midsommar does too in a lot of ways. I think both of us left the theater feeling kind of high or drunk or whatever. It was just it was weird, but you don't even need it. I mean, I'm sure it might make for a different experience, but it fucks with your head anyway. So I don't know.
I just wanted to add that... Say that again?
I was just asking if you had any thoughts on Mandy.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it to the point where it's a borderline purchase movie. And for me to say that means that I enjoyed enough to watch it multiple times. At the time, I think I was pretty effusive in being in saying this is surprising. And it has these character actors in it, like Linus Roche or Andrea Riseborough for that matter, but also... Richard Blake, who's been in a bunch of Rob Zombie movies, and he played Joe Chill in Batman Begins. He's got a particular look to him that bothers me significantly. And so for him to be in this, along with Nicolas Cage and then death metal involved, all stuff that's not my favorite per se, but makes it such a melody of enjoyable gore. I really dig Mandy a lot.
Yeah, don't forget Bill Duke.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course. The best action movie ever, alumnus.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned...
I'm trying to remember what that weapon was. Oh, my God, that weapon that he created for Cage. Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, that was the thing.
That was amazing.
Is like you said, it grows on you, but then I went back and watched it again earlier this year, and it was like I was seeing it for the first time again. It was insane how fresh it felt upon the second viewing, and it was, I don't know, I love this movie, and again, not for everybody, but I wish it was. And I know you said Midsommar was one of yours, Josh. Is there any other ones that you had chosen, or is that it?
I was prepared for enough to talk about 5. If you guys want to be done now, that's 100% fine with me. Or
I'd like you to do one more.
You can do one more. Good.
Okay. I'll just say this is the collective group, and I'll say 80s movies, but specifically certain ones that I've got to almost in total this year that are spoofs or light comedies or crazy teen movies, but witty 80s ridiculousness is what I'll have to say. Like the guy that directed One Crazy Summer, I can't remember his name, but it's a ridiculous name. Something Steve, whatever. One Crazy Summer, The Sure Thing, Better Off Dead, Real Genius, Naked Gun, Top Secret.
Savage Steve Holland.
Yeah, Savage Steve Holland. Okay, stuff like that. That is something I can turn my head away from the screen and just really enjoy it. That's not just like gentle and pleasant. I don't want to use that oft-termed phrase on this show, at least, to describe them. But they're just such delightful, easy watches that are also serving as nostalgia. And I love Cusack so much. And they've got witty, quotey things in them, like real geniuses all over the place when it comes to that kind of thing. And there's a team like Neil Israel, Pat Proft, the Zucker brothers, and Jim Abrahams that created a series of these movies that are all enjoyable in their own way. I would argue that maybe Police Academy isn't as enjoyable as the others, but it's part of that group. And I just kind of like want to sit in a room with all of these guys and listen to their banter back and forth. Like, how did they come up with this shit? How did Steve Holland, and he looks like he has so much fun making these movies, you know?
Maybe him, but Josh, you don't want to be in a room with the Zuckers now. Nobody might not make it out of that room.
Okay. In that case, I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm assuming that you're making fun of the Scary Movie franchise.
No, they went hardcore right wing.
Oh, okay. Well, fuck them then. I'll just go with the other.
Do not look up the trailer for their new movie. It is batshit.
Oh, did they collaborate with Dinesh D'Souza?
I mean, they might as well have. Like, making a parody movie with him might be what they've done here. It's a parody of Bernie Sanders. And it's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Eric Roberts and Kevin Sorbo and Dean Cain and
wait, Eric Roberts too?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not thankful for any of them, and the only nice thing that I can say is that I won't say harsher things.
Okay, I love One Crazy Summer though. One Crazy Summer is a movie that's just stuck with me for years. It's just a phenomenally funny movie, and I can watch that a million times.
I don't know what it is about Savage Steve Holland, but man, I can imagine being on one of those movies. And even though John Cusack himself is kind of batty these days, young John Cusack seems like a lot of fun. I could probably like Bobcat Goldthwait is in this stuff. The guy from Revenge of the Nerds that Curtis Armstrong, Booger. Yeah. It just seems like a fun crowd to be around.
It's a weird note about Savage Steve Holland. This is actually true. He created the whammy for Press Your Luck.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
He created the animation for it. That's real.
That makes sense. Both Better Off Dead.
When you think about Better Off Dead, yeah. When you think about Better Off Dead, and yeah, it makes sense.
It's amazing. All right. Anything else before we wrap up the show, guys?
Please see H is for Happiness. Please. That's my main takeaway from the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we have been talking, I've added that to my watch list.
Yeah, you will enjoy it. I guess with that, say happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's listening and to you guys as well. And we'll talk later.
You too as well. And thank you for having me on this show. And I really am thankful for having opportunities like this every once in a while when I've got a whole bunch of stuff to reveal to you guys. It's like, once again, instead of screaming at a wall, I get to scream at you guys for a while. And I always have appreciated that.
And we love you, Josh. We want you here as often as you want to be.
Anytime you want to come back, please do.
I want to mention next month we're doing another one of these. I Spit on Your Grave. I don't think you need to watch it yourselves to enjoy it. I don't at this time recommend that you watch it for yourselves, but we're going to, and next month for Patreon.
Excellent.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you later.
And all right, cool.
We're done. All right.
Thanks.
See you later, guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.